right? And so in the desert, the horses are what? Swimming in that ocean. And you know how the water, when a fast boat goes through it, or a shark is going through the water, and it's on the surface, what happens in the water? There's a wake in the back. It's like it's tearing through the water, isn't it? When horses are running in the desert, aren't they leaving a wake behind? Aren't they tearing through the land? They're leaving a similar effect as the ocean leaves when a speedboat goes through, or a jet ski goes through, or back in the day a shark goes through. Or a vessel, a fast vessel like a boat goes through. So وَالسَّابِحَاتِ سَبْحًا is basically describing this is the kind of thing that you see in the seas, but these incredible animals are showing you that scene on the land. كما يجيء في القرآن لسبح النجوم في الفلك وكل في فلك يسبحون. It's also used for floating or swimming in the air, meaning flying. And that's actually similar to when we talk about how, man, that car is flying. That car is flying. So there are two implications of وَسَابِحَاتِ سَبْحًا now to add to this image. On the one hand, it's piercing through the land. It's violent. Like the water is being torn open as the vessel goes, the earth is being wrecked as these horses go through. So it's violent, extreme, and aggressive. On the other hand, the speed with which they're moving can be compared to flying. And those are the two intense, notions that are added to this image. Now that the horses have been released, it's only natural that they're going to go super fast, and that's وَالسَّابِحَاتِ سَبْحًا. The scene is now intensified. And so, as we move forward, we're going to see فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا. Then there's no surprise. The fa here is actually to show that immediately, and thereafter, quickly. Now, for Arabic students, there's musabiq, and there's sabiq. Musabiq means someone who races. Sabiq means someone who gets there first. Like وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ. Sabiqun are those who get there first. Translated the first and the foremost, right? So فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا means they get there super fast. They get to their destination in no time. Which tells you that they had their target in sight. They moved very quickly. It's incorrect translation to say, and they race with one another. If some suggest that, thus racing and, surpassing one another. That would actually be فَالْمُسَابِقَاتِ سِبَاقًا, not فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا. That's a different, wasn't altogether. Sabaqa, not sabaqa. Okay? So now they get there. Now the thing is, this is what I was waiting for. What's going to happen when they get there? Now it's on. Now the scene begins. But before we get there, just a couple of quick things. مَلْحُوظًا فِيهِ مَعْنَى السُّرْعَى وَالْمُبَادَرَةِ. When Allah says فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا, they get there quickly, they get there immediately. وَاسْتِعْمَالُهُ فِي الْخَيْلِ وَاضِحٌ وَقَرِيبٌ. And using that for horses is so obvious. وذهبوا إلى تأويل السابقات إلى أنها وصف لهذه أو تلك فالملائكة تسبق إلى تدبير شؤون الكون بأمر الله. Those are the other interpretations. You can find them in tafsir. Like the angels are taking the souls up and they're racing up, or they get there super quickly, etc., etc. She's disagreeing with that, and this, by the way, also existed classically. So it's not just her opinion. She's more inclined towards this opinion. What I find unique about her contribution is she's providing a thorough rationale behind it. She's actually furnishing it with a thought process and a complete imagery that makes it holistic. Anyhow, so now, these horses clearly, and she added something I didn't say, she said when you swim, and especially when you swim fast, you prepare yourself. You don't just swim fast, I'm just jumping in, I'm going to go across the lake. You have tahayyu, you have proper preparation. That makes complete sense because raiders don't just show up one day and say, hey, let's go rob them. They have a proper plan, they're disciplined. You can tell that they're very disciplined and everybody knows exactly what to do because they were all holding the reins back together. The fact that they got to their destination all together immediately means they're disciplined and they were properly prepared. So she's describing a raid, an attack that was meticulously planned. This was meticulously executed. Okay? So now, as we go forward, the hard ayah, فَالْمُدَبِّرَاتِ أَمْرًا. Dabbara in Arabic means two things. Please understand that. Dabbara means to plan. Dabbara means to plan. Dabbara also means to execute the plan. Those are two different things. If someone's doing tadbir, they're basically in Arabic doing two things. They're not only making a plan, they're also executing the plan. And a lot of times people execute plans without making them. And a lot of times people make a lot of plans but never execute. What are you going to do? I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. There's all these plans and you don't do anything. You know? Like I have students like that. Ustad, which book should I read? And then which one? And when I'm done, then what should I read? I was like, which one have you read? No, I haven't read yet. I'm just downloading right now. I've got 8 gigs of books downloaded. Which other book should I download? No, that's what your plan is, to download. Okay? Nothing's downloaded here. Nothing's even streaming over here. But at least it's here on your device. That's cute. You know? Read some. Abhi ye to padh lo yaar. Like there are students, I'm teaching them something. And they're like, Ustad, when we're done with all this, then what are we going to study? Listen, you should be Ustad. Why don't you just learn what we're learning right now? How about we do this? Because you're not good at it yet. Just focus on this. So there are people who plan but don't execute. And there are people who execute without a plan. Tadbir is actually planning and execution. Now the imagery that was painted already suggests that there's a plan. What is this suggesting? It could mean 2 things. It could mean they plan out the decision. It could mean they are now executing their plan. In other words, it's an entire village in front of them. You're going to go left, you're going to go right, you're going to go middle, you're going to go exactly here. This is our exit. This is how many seconds we have to pull this heist off. Everybody knows their part, like a coordinated team, right? Like an organized offense in a sports team. That's al-mudabbirati amra. Every one of these raiders knows exactly where they have to go. And so وأصل التدبير في استعمال اللغوي أنه من التفكير في دبر الأمور وعواقبها. The origin of the word tadbir is actually to think thoroughly about what will happen if we do this versus what will happen if we do that. Every action has a consequence behind it. So let's permutate. Let's say if we do this, then that. If they go this way, go that way. If they attack you, defend this way. Blow this whistle, blow that horn, etc., etc. How are we going to warn each other? Because when you execute a dangerous plan, there are multiple possibilities, aren't there? Tadbir means to consider all the possibilities and what is behind each of the options you take, and then put all of them together along with their consequences. على أنه يطلق عادة على تولي الأمر والنهوض بتنظيمه وإدارته. It's also used for developing and executing a plan well organized دون أن تنقطع صلته بالأصل اللغوي. وقد فسرها الراغب في النازعات بأنها ملائكة موكلة بتدبير أمور الكون. Imam Raghib al-Asfahani, among others, had this notion. This is a very popular notion you find in classical tafasir. Some absolutely rejected it. Others mentioned it very commonly, like Imam Razi, who said some angels are assigned different tasks in Allah's creation. And they're going to do they make the plans or whatever. And some said, no, all the plans are made by Allah, that's all shirk, etc. Okay? So now I'm going to read some of the opinions that she doesn't agree with, but you should know about them. Okay, about this. وفي الكشاف in Zamakhshari's book الكشاف أما إنها الملائكة تدبر أمرا من أمور العباد مما يصلحهم في دينهم أو دنياهم. Zamakhshari says this is angels that are making plans for their slaves of Allah on the earth, what will be good for them or what will be bad for them. وأما إنها خيل الغزاة تدبر أمر الغلبة والظفر, or it's the horses of the believers, meaning the mujahideen, who are now planning their victory and how to capture the enemy. وَإِمَّا أَنَّهَا النُّجُومُ تُدَبِّرُ أَمْرًا فِي which is weird. تُدَبِّرُ أَمْرًا فِي عِلْمِ الْحِسَابِ, or it's the sky, it's the stars that are making the calculations of different kinds of calculations, like almost like astrology. Sometimes you read weird stuff in tafsir. Anyway, وَفِي الْبَحْرِ الْمُحِيطِ لا أحفظ خلافا في أنها الملائكة التي تدبر الأمور التي سخرها الله تعالى وصرفها فيها. I have no qualms in expressing this can only mean angels. It doesn't mean anything else basically. Angels make those plans. Just like Allah made other things that execute Allah's plan, like the winds and the sky and the clouds, etc. And so different people presented this, and here's what she says. وَإِذْ فَهِمْنَا النَّازِعَاتِ بِالْخَيْلِ فِي نَزْعِهَا الْمُغْرِقِ وسبقها السابق يكون التدبير غاية ما تجمعت له قواها فيما أريد لها من أمر الغلبة والحسن. This is epic. This is where I left the scene off. They went riding into the village, then what happened? Then what happens is, Quran says either, 2 interpretations. One way of looking at it is they all knew exactly where to attack and what to do. Coordinated effort, like I was mentioning. The other interpretation is the attack was so quick And the raid was so successful, and they came and they disappeared, and now they're back in their hiding place in the Bat Cave, and now they're actually planning out who gets what. You get 20%, you get to keep this, you get to keep that, and they're doing the tadbir among themselves of the raid that's already happened. Meaning it happens way too fast for anybody to even realize what happened, and they're in and out of there. ونتفق مع المفسرين في أن ما بعد الواو في الآيات الثلاث صفات لموصوف واحد. And that's actually, her interpretation is, and this is most mufassirun, how they interpret the first ayah, وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا, they say everything else is description of that first one. It's not 5 different things, it's one thing with 5 attributes. One matter with 5 attributes, okay? Now, this is actually again a unique contribution. Before I tell you about it, I'll share with you some background. There are theories about how qasam works in the Quran. Theories about how to understand when Allah takes an oath. Simply speaking, when Allah says, I swear by time, or I swear by the sun, or He says, I swear by the moon, or I swear by the morning, or I swear by, etc., etc. Here He swore by battle horses. What is the purpose of Allah Azza wa Jal swearing? Basically, to make the long story short, there are 2 major opinions on how that's interpreted. Classically, there are 2 ways of looking at it. One way of looking at it is, every time Allah takes an oath, He's making a big deal out of something. لِلتَّعْظِيم, what they call in Arabic, لِلتَّعْظِيم. In other words, when He says, I swear by time, time is a big deal. When He says, I swear by the fig, or I swear by the olive, then the fig and the olive are both a really big deal. And the people who have that view of the oaths, when you study their interpretation of the Allah swearing by the fig, you'll find 5 pages of how the fig is awesome. Because Allah said, Allah swore by it, so it must be awesome, so let me just spend a lot of time pondering over the benefits of the fig, or the benefits of the olive, etc., etc. Another view says, no, that doesn't answer a very fundamental question. Just because Allah swore by something, doesn't answer the question, why is this oath in this surah and another oath in another surah? Because they could be anywhere and they'd still be awesome. But the fact that this one's here must mean it's connected to what's coming. And the fact that that one's there must be connected to what's coming over there. So there's this theory of al-qasam wa jawab al-qasam. Al-qasam wa jawab al-qasam means when Allah takes an oath, when He says, I swear by time, there's something that an idea that He's tying it with. And every time He swears, He simply got your attention, just like in English now, when I say, I swear to God. Everybody's like, what happened? You're expecting me to say, I can't just say, I swear to God and walk away. Unless I say, I swear to God and it's understood. Like, I swear to God, you guys are so disgusting, I can't even take it anymore. So I just say, I swear to God, and you just walk away. You walking away is actually saying, I'm disgusted with you. But I didn't even have to say it, and that's actually how disgusted I am with you. Right? It wasn't even worth words. But the words are still understood, aren't they? There's always something that follows the oath. So what Mufassirun do when they study Quran is sometimes Allah will take an oath, and then after the oath, He will give a response to that oath. What was the point that He was making? And those 2 things are connected. Like, I swear by time, humanity is in loss. Those 2 things are connected. Because the loss of humanity, what's the greatest loss of humanity? Time. You could have anything else, health, wealth, money, status, fame. You could have looks, you could have anything. One thing you can't have, that you'll always be losing, and you can't get more of, is what? It's time. The ultimate evidence of loss is time. So those 2 things are connected to each other, right? She argues, actually, that's not always the case. And she's right, that's not always the case. There are places in the Quran where Allah will take an oath, and you're waiting for Him to say, so what are you going to say after that? And He won't say anything. He doesn't give a jawab al-qasam. He doesn't give a response to the oath. That leaves Mufassirun perplexed. How do we fill in the blank? Because Allah left a blank. And so they say, well, let's compare this oath to other oaths in other surahs where He did fill in the blank. And maybe we'll borrow that fill in the blank over here. That's what He meant. He didn't have to say it because He already said it somewhere else. That's one way they fill the gap, right? So here he says, وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا وَالسَّابِحَاتِ سَبْحًا فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا فَالْمُدَبِّرَاتِ أَمْرًا. All of this is the oath. What is the response to that oath? It's not mentioned, so some said, and these are the opinions. قِيلَ يَكُونُ مَحْذُوفًا وَتَقْدِيرُهُ لَتُبْعَثُنَّ. It's actually understood. It means, I swear to God, you will be resurrected. But he didn't have to say, you will be resurrected. It's understood. لِدَلَالَةِ مَا بَعْدَهُ عَلَيْهِ, because of what's coming after it. And this is, Abu Hayyan mentions this, and وَأَنَّهُ عَلَى أَنَّهُ الْمُخْتَارِ, that's the preferred opinion with him. وَعَنِ التِّرْمِذِي أَنْ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَعِبْرَةً لِمَنْ يَخْشَى. Later on in the surah, Allah will say, in all of that, there's a huge lesson for anybody who's afraid. I swear by the horses and all of what I just described to you, I swear by all of that, there's a great lesson here. That's to them is the whole sentence. But then, فيما يلي من السورة رده ابن الأنباري بقوله هذا قبيح لأن الكلام قد طال. He says, Ibn al-Anbari says that's ugly because that's like the oath was here and one passage later, you're connecting it back. That's too far apart. People lose their train of thought by then. You can't connect those two things because they're so far away. وَقِيلَ الْجَوَابِ لَيَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةِ تَتْبَعُهَا الرَّادِفَةِ حُذِفَتْ فِيهِ اللَّامِ. Well, if you put a lam at the beginning of a sentence, it means it's the response to the oath. So they say, Allah said, يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةِ. And some say, no, what he meant by that is, لَا يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةِ. He just didn't say the lam. But you can imagine that it's there, and that's why this is the response to the oath. And لِأَنَّهُ فَصْلٌ بَيْنَ الْلَامِ الْمُقَدَّرَ وَالْفِعْلِ. And they said, that's too much of a stretch. Why would you have to imagine a word is there when Allah didn't put it? If Allah wanted to put it there, He can put it there. Then وَقِيلَ التَّقْدِيرِ يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةِ وَالنَّازِعَاتِ. Then some said, no, the ayat are in reverse. Because the next ayah that's coming is the day on which the earth that is always meant to shake, when it's going to shake violently. So they say, no, we should read this in reverse. The day on which the earth shakes violently, I swear by the horses. So reverse it. And so that exists also. وَرَفَضَهُ Abu Hayyan. Abu Hayyan responded to it by saying, لَيْسَ بِشَيْءٍ. That ain't nothing. I don't know where you came up with that. I love those. I love the Laysa bi shay. What is that? Seriously? Like if he was writing that today, he'd just write, seriously? Question mark. That's all he'd say. You know. فَإِذَا هُمْ بِالسَّارِحِ وَالنَّازِعَاتِ خَطَّأَهُ ابْنُ الْأَبَّارِ لِأَنَّ الْفَاءَ يُفْتَتَحُ بِالْكَلَامِ. Some said, no. The first ayah was supposed to be فَإِذَا هُمْ بِالسَّاهِرَةِ, a later ayah. And Ibn al-Abari says, what are you talking about? Speech doesn't begin with a fa in Arabic. Don't you know Arabic? You know, so they would do that in their books. وَالسَّادِسِ الْجَوَابِ هَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ مُوسَى لِأَنَّهُ فِي تَقْدِيرٍ قَدْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثٌ. Abu Hayyan says, لَيْسَ بِشَيْءٍ. That's nothing to. One after the other, theories are presented about what the missing blank would be. And quite honestly, the most beautiful answer that I see here is the one presented by Bint Shati, rahimahullah. I do find it very convincing. Here's what she says. فَنَحْتَاجُ مَعَهُ إِلَى تَسْوِيَةِ الْقَاعِدَةِ فِي وُجُوبِ دُخُولِ اللَّامِ عَلَى الْفِعْلِ مُؤَكَّدًا بِالنُّونِ فِي جَوَابِ الْقَسَمِ. First of all, we have to get rid of the notion that you have to have a lam and you have to have a noon. Every time there's a qasam, there has to be a jawab al-qasam. Allah's speech is free of cages. Allah's speech broke and evolved the rules of Arabic, the rules of poetry, the rules of grammar, the rules of vocabulary, the rules of word usage. Think of any chapter of linguistics, Quran took a creative approach. Any chapter of linguistics. Verbal idioms, in verbal idioms, Mustansir Mir said it beautifully. He said every verse of the Quran, virtually every verse presented some kind of a language problem for those who were accustomed to typical language. Because the Quran just keeps defying the norm, defining new boundaries. So when you're trying to cage one principle on the Quran and saying every surah of the Quran must abide by this theory, then that theory supersedes Quran. He says you can't, the word of Allah supersedes all theories. You cannot come up with an overarching theory and impose it onto the Quran. It's the word of Allah. يَعْلُو وَلَا يُعْلَى عَلَيْهِ. It supersedes, it is not superseded. وَكَلِمَةُ اللَّهِ هِيَ الْعُلْيَا. The word of Allah lies in its supreme place. So what does she say? Sometimes the oath is taken and the natural effect of the oath is it gets everybody's attention. It gets everybody's attention. Now that I have your attention, let me change the subject altogether. And by the way, that's perfect. Remember how the horses were being pulled and there was great tension? Remember when the horses went down into the raid? There was great tension and you were wondering what happened? And Allah didn't tell you. He just said it got done. And you would really want to know what was all this about. And Allah switches the subject immediately and says, يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةِ. Listen carefully now. This will all make sense now. The day on which the violent shaking, the earth violently shakes. And the name of the earth in this ayah is Ar-Rajifa. Al-Ard Ar-Rajifa is actually the word. And Rajifa means something that shakes, but not something that is shaken, something that shakes. Now, let me just help you explain, understand that visually. Am I shaking? Or is the pen shaking? I'm shaking it, right? I'm shaking it. So I'm the Rajif, this is the Marjuf in Arabic. If the earth was being shaken, I was expecting Allah to say, يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الْمَرْجُوفَةِ. The earth that is shaken. Allah, instead of calling the earth the thing that gets shaken, calls it the thing that shakes. Rajifa. In other words, that day, it's not just that the earth is shaking, it's that the earth is shaking everything else up. The earth is actually the culprit now. You don't ask what happened to the earth is doing it to you. The earth is the culprit. It is, by the way, describing something. The horses wanted to move. What was happening? What was Allah doing? Holding them back. Now we're learning all this time, Allah has been holding the earth back. It wants to shake. When the horses trample down the hill and raid the village, what's going to happen in the village? It's going to shake. And the only thing holding back from the village from shaking is the reins being pulled back. Allah is holding back the reins of the earth because it wants to shake so badly. It wants to raid so badly. But that day, He'll let it go. He'll let it go. Judgment Day will be like that night raid that the villagers sleeping completely heedless and unaware of their attackers will not see coming. يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةِ. When the shaking happens. They'll wake up all of a sudden, well, what's going on? You know, like the raid. And when you go outside and you see the attack, and you see one horse go by, you're like, oh, thank God they're gone. And guess what? Another wave behind, تَتْبَعُهَا الرَّادِفَةِ. And the next wave of them comes and attacks also. This is actually Allah saying, if you ever want to imagine what the Day of Judgment is going to be like, وَلَيَأْتِيَنَّهُمْ بَغْتَةً وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. It'll come to them out of nowhere. They won't have any idea that it's coming. When it comes like that, man, it's going to be like that raid. See, when you talk to people who don't believe in the afterlife, like the Quraysh didn't believe in the afterlife, how do you make them visualize what they're going to feel on Judgment Day? Well, how can you relate to the shock that's going to happen on Judgment Day when you won't know what's going on? وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى. You're going to see people, they look like they're drunk and they're not drunk at all. People are going to be standing around looking at this horse go by, that horse go by, somebody swipes a sword at them, somebody picks this up, this camp's on fire, that house is broken down. People running around screaming and you're just like, oh, I'm confused, what's happening? You know, when that's going on, people look drunk and they're not drunk at all. This is how Allah makes arguments. This is how Allah does a switch from one subject to the next. يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةِ. The thing that is meant to shake, the day on which when it shakes. By the way, in the case of the village, the horses were causing the shaking. But in the case of the earth itself is doing the shaking. The earth itself is the raider. You don't need the raider from the outside. The one that will attack you on Judgment Day is under your feet already. Al-ittirabu shadid, intense disturbance. You know what they call rajifa? When I keep calling shaking, you know what it is? They say in Arabic, lughatan, yusta'malu lughatan fi rajih, al-humma dhatu ra'da. The kind of fever that makes you shiver and shake, that's actually called rajif. When the earth shivers with its fever. Goodness. Other places in the Quran, Allah will describe the earth like a pregnant woman giving birth on Judgment Day. وَأَلْقَتْ مَا فِيهَا وَتَخَلَّتْ. it will release what is inside and be relieved. And a woman shakes when she's giving birth. She trembles with pain because she has to let go. This earth has been holding in a lot of sinners, a lot of secrets, a lot of evil that it wants to testify against. The earth doesn't disobey Allah. The people on this earth disobey Allah. The sky doesn't disobey Allah, but they are witness to the disobedience of Allah. You know how when you see something bad, you have a bad reaction? The earth actually wants to have a bad reaction when sin happens on the earth. It doesn't want to see the disobedience to Allah. But Allah says, calm down. I'll let you react, but not yet. I'll let you react, but not yet. And sometimes it can't take it anymore, so Allah lets it have a little bit of a reaction. ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ in Surah Ar-Rum. Corruption came out in the land and in the sea because of some sins that people had earned. لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا. So they can get a taste of at least some things they've done. Because Judgment Day, they'll get a taste of all the things they've done. But for now, let's get them a little preview.